You're listening to Pilot Talk by OSM Aviation.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of the Pilot Talk podcast. We are confined, restricted, separated in different countries. So we're really happy we were able to sort this out using some new technology that we don't typically use. We hope and think the quality is going to turn out good. And the upside is that we are actually on video for once. So we're really looking forward to that. But yeah, another episode of the Pilot Talk podcast, a podcast for you who are interested in aviation, flight training, flying. And today we are going to talk about what's on everybody's mind, what's on everybody's lips right now, and that's the COVID-19 situation. It is what do you say, Michel?
It's a crisis.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's a pandemic. What can we say? I mean, we are healthy. We are safe. However, I'm in Spain and you're in Sweden.
Yep.
Things in Spain are not that great.
I hear you. If we're looking at Europe, many different countries have been struck by the pandemic in many different ways. I think it's no secret that at this point in time, 22nd of April, Spain and Italy are among the countries that have been hit the worst. And like you said, I think it's important to make that point right off the bat that this is a humanitarian crisis. It affects all of us. We obviously, this podcast is about aviation and about flying. So naturally, we'll get into that area of things. But it's a very good thing that you start off saying that, Michel. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's struck so many people and families, and it's just it's horrible.
People.
Yeah, and
but there's some good news.
There is. There's been, I think one of the tools that we have at our disposal today, if we look at, for example, the Spanish flu in the beginning of the 19th century, which was devastating, millions of dead people and infected people. But today we have technology at our disposal. Yes, our traveling habits might have enabled the virus to spread quicker, but we also were able to spread the information about the virus quicker.
Yeah, that's right.
And to spread information, from the World Health Organization, how to prevent it. And we've implemented social distancing and all these things to flatten the curve. Yeah. So well said. There's some positive news in the middle of everything as well. Yeah, why don't we just get into the episode itself, my friend? Let's
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here, to talk about what we know, to talk about aviation. And obviously, our thoughts go out to the hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers that are on the front lines battling this. We also have a lot of empathy for our industry colleagues that are not flying anymore because of this. We looked at some recent numbers, and it's some airlines have sliced as much as 70 to 90% of their schedules.
Yeah, and they furloughed a lot of people.
Yeah, and obviously it's natural for us. We know many who have been furloughed, and that OSM Aviation Academy also. We've had we are still flying at the Academy in Sweden. It's still possible to fly in the Academy in the U.S. as well on a voluntary basis. We've implemented really strict routines. We are sanitizing our aircraft before and after every lesson. Same thing with the simulators. We're doing staggered shifts to avoid people, or many people, being at the same time, at the same place at the same time, I should say. And so we're doing all these precautionary measures. We even put together a COVID-19 manual with all the recommendations from the World Health Organization and also some specific recommendations for our operations. So, For us as a flight school, and especially the one in Sweden, we're actually flying more than ever. In Norway, they closed down. They were more restrictive. So before that was implemented, we moved more or less the entire fleet from Norway over to Sweden, and we've flown a lot.
A lot of sorties, yeah.
Yeah. And, we're monitoring the situation very closely, of course, ensuring that the students are staying safe. And you know this very well, Michel. I mean, pilots are so accustomed to monitoring their own health.
Absolutely. We have to. It's part of our profession.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know that very well. Before you go to work, you make sure that you are 100% healthy, that you're mentally fit, and all these things. So, obviously, we've made more of a point out of it now to, keep your distance, especially wash your hands even more often than usually. But more important than anything, do not come to the school if you are have the slightest symptoms. But in the everyday operation, maybe it's not as strict. If you have a little bit of a sore throat, you might still go to work. But today, in this situation, no, not taking any chances.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. But the good thing is that pilots are very used to monitoring their health every day, right?
Exactly. We don't self-medicate. As soon as we have something, we actually will go see a flight surgeon if we have to. But we don't fly when we're sick. We can't do that.
Yeah. That's right. So that's for it's obviously it's a situation that's very strange to many people, and we have to adapt. But at least that's something that both our student pilots and our instructors are very used to, monitoring their own health.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was sorry to branch in on the academy, but I guess it's nice to just go through that information as well. I guess. One of the things that we've received questions on and that many people are wondering about is the industry, how it's affected the industry. And, you mentioned Lufthansa earlier. They've had, they're only doing cargo now. They've
a lot of people are doing just cargo.
Yeah. So the companies that can fly cargo still have that leg to stand on, so to speak, to move goods between different countries but
medical supplies.
Yeah, medical supplies, ambulance flying. We have quite a few instructors and former students that work here that fly for the air ambulance. I heard that there's some airlines that they're rebuilding their commercial passenger planes to have respirator arrangements for
the whole kit.
Yeah, so they can move COVID-19 patients to hospitals and that kind of thing. So, they're doing a tremendous job.
The front line, man. Soldiers, heroes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. God bless you all.
Yeah, definitely. We're so thankful for their efforts.
Yeah.
So, and then, I think we're seeing some interesting developments, and companies are catching up. You mentioned also that Emirates have started flying, and they're doing on-site rapid COVID-19 tests.
Yeah, 10 minutes. Yeah. 10-minute tests, and then their planes are spick and span, and they've been decontaminated, if you want. Make sure that they're all nice and clean, and then the cabin crew are wearing special gowns. They're wearing a mask. They're wearing a special, almost a special hat for their hair. I mean, it's they're adapting to make sure that the spread is stopped and that the confidence of the passengers are back. I mean, a lot of guys, when this thing comes up, the curtain goes up and where you can go flying again. How many people are going to go flying?
Mm-hmm.
We have to establish the confidence that you're going to come in a clean airplane.
Yeah, definitely. And mitigating risk.
That's right.
It's also something our industry is used to. It's just a different challenge. It's a different risk to mitigate. And I think one of the interesting things, we often speak about aviation as having a catalytic effect on other industries, meaning that aviation contributes to local businesses like restaurants and tour guides and all these different shopping, all these different areas.
Yeah.
And, obviously those industries are impacted as well by the reduction of air travel. And it's very visible. It's very, visible. This is information that we know intellectually, but once a thing like this happens, you start feeling it. It becomes real, right? The customer base is gone for so many businesses, and it shows how important aviation is to the world, to not only connecting people, but also to be an engine, to be an engine for the economy in other areas.
Exactly, and it's not gonna die. I mean, we're here for the long run, and it's gonna get better, or we're gonna pull through. It's already on the downhill right now, and just like you said, all the businesses, we're all connected together. I mean, aviation is one big one. The cruise ships, that's another one. The trains, I mean, the buses, the taxis. I mean, it's just we're all a big family, and we're gonna pull through. And at the beginning, we all have to adapt to new things, new regs and all that stuff. But eventually, it's going to be back to normal.
Yeah, that's it. For me and you've been around a little bit longer than I have, a couple of years. But and I mean, so for me, I remember 9/11. I remember the financial crisis, but I think for you, it was a different experience, at least 9/11, because then you were flying. Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I'm curious to hear how that was like for you in that period.
It's funny because I was going to work when it happened, and then on the radio in the car as I'm going to the airport, the DJ was saying that, there's I think it's a suicide. The pilot just killed himself and brought everybody into the building. And I'm saying to myself, there's no way a pilot will do that. So, and then we came to the place where, everybody was grounded. We couldn't go anywhere. Everything stopped. The whole world stopped at that day. So it's changed. There's a lot of things that happened, but, look where we are now.
Yeah.
We recovered. We bounced back. And that's why we're so resilient. Humans are so resilient.
Yeah.
We are destructive, but we are so resilient as well.
Yeah. It sounds very familiar. I mean, obviously it was a different instigator, a different triggering action for what happened next. But the way you said it, the world just stood still that day. Yeah. And, I've seen some of the imagery from Stockholm, Arlanda. We got one of the runways just full of parked aircraft. And I've seen some images now these days that resemble that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But again, it's not all doom and gloom, and we will make sure that we stress that we will come out of this stronger.
Yeah.
So we just have to batten our hatches and be ready to come out.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, because like you said, we're going to bounce back from this. It's just a matter of how and when, and This, I think, but it's important, I think, to highlight some of the points that we're talking about here. Now we got this wonderful tool of video, so I wanted to bring up some of the pictures that we've looked at. We took some data from IATA and ICAO, and just to show our viewers, now it's both viewers and listeners, that's pretty cool. So kind of show in numbers what this means, or what the aviation industry contributes with in terms of both, economic impact, but also how many flights, how many jobs, and how much, in terms of, if you can all see this image right now, per year, 4.3 billion passengers are moved. That's more than half the world population. There's 48,500 routes worldwide. There's 38 million scheduled commercial flights. 100,000 flights a day, 12 million passengers transported every day, and 240,000 hours flown daily. But the bottom line here, as in many instances, is what I think is really important. 65.5 million jobs supported, and 3.6% of GDP. Total of $2.7 trillion of economic impact. So that just shows that it's not just the pilots, the cabin crew, the administrative personnel that makes the airlines go around, the ground handling personnel, the air traffic controllers, everybody that makes this magnificent puzzle of aviation connect.
Yeah.
It's also the people in other industries, the local restaurant owners, the local businesses that does tourism-related activities, hikes and skydiving and boat tours and whatnot. Lots of people are being affected by this, and then I think it's so important, the message that you bring forward, Michel, we've seen crisis in the past. This is just a different challenge, and humanity is resilient. We'll get through it. So I think, if we look at the history and the forecast here, this is the predicted growth according to IATA. And, what do these staples tell us? I don't know. Might be a little bit too generic to draw any real insights from, but it shows that there's growth. If we break it down a little bit more, this is kind of how you see that catalytic effect that I was talking about of around $900 billion for other industries. Aviation direct is $704.4 billion. So it's substantial. It really is. Yeah.
Incredible the impact that aviation has.
Yeah. But so in the long term, like you said, we're going to bounce back. But IATA did a survey, and I think this is pretty interesting as well. They showed that 40% of recent travelers surveyed indicate they would wait 6 months or more before traveling following the containment of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's a lot.
Yeah, 40%.
Yeah. So I guess we can say that the summer season might be very unlike what it usually is within aviation, which is usually the part of the year where the most activity is and where the most revenue is generated and so on. But that also means that 60% of the travelers, recent travelers surveyed, anticipated a return to travel within 1 to 2 months of containment of the COVID-19 pandemic. So,
which is good.
Yeah, 6 out of 10 people want to go traveling again pretty shortly after the restrictions are moved. And then 69% of recent travelers surveyed indicated they could delay a return to travel until their personal financial situation stabilizes. And that's, I guess, it's almost a little bit obvious, but I guess it's important. Yeah, it's a no-brainer, right?
But if we can go real quick, Stein, I just want to make sure that those 40% that are hesitant to go flying, the middle seat will be no longer occupied. The airlines are doing things to make sure that the passenger will be protected and that there will be no more contamination. So the middle seats are no longer used. And in Canada, you'll have to wear a mask for at least the first 6 months of flying. People have to wear masks all the time they fly. I mean, so it's not going to be it's not going to be like it used to be. But I mean, the airlines are doing things that make sure that our passengers are safe.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point you bring up, because that could actually have a direct impact on that 40% number.
That's right, exactly.
If the protective measures taken by airlines and travelers are sufficient to instill a comfort, that could mean that people would want to go travel sooner.
Exactly.
Yeah. But if we look at this chart then from 17th of April, IATA's economic chart of the week, return to air travel expected to be slow. Now, what does that mean, relatively speaking? It might be different. The word slow might mean different things to different people. But from what they predict here in Q3, so the third quarter of this year, they expect recovery in domestic markets, so this fall, and Q4 recovery in domestic and 50% recovery in international markets. But we're definitely gonna be in a recession in terms of RPK, or revenue passenger kilometers, for the remainder of the year. But let's do that historical approach on a data-based perspective.
Yeah.
And this is a chart, well, not this exact one, but a similar one with the same data that I've looked at a few times. And, as it says in the header, air traffic has been vulnerable to external factors, including disease outbreaks. And lots of people forgot about the SARS epidemic.
That's
As
right.
you can see boxed in here. That was also a coronavirus.
Exactly.
And, there's been more substantial things. The 9/11 we spoke about, the Asian crisis, the financial crisis in China or in Asia, started in Thailand, actually. And then the world recession in 2008. So all these things have happened in the past that have affected our industry greatly, and COVID-19 will as well. But like you pointed out, humanity is resilient. And bouncing back is something that we will do. It's just a matter of how and when. And the things we do is going to matter. Like you said, if there's going to be a middle seat, it's going to be available. Other preventive measures such as masks, health checks, those kind of things,
And there's a good chance that, there's a good chance that the prices for travel will be probably lower than it was before. Because now the fuel is so low that the margins are greater.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, the fuel is an all-time low right now. And I think, for most of the news out there is like, some airlines are canceling their orders or delaying their orders of their new jets. But I saw that the Ryanair CEO, Michael O'Leary, went out and said, I think we're going to increase our order because now is the time to buy airplanes because it's cheaper. And also the fuel prices are much cheaper. So once borders start opening again and people start traveling, because they will want to start traveling for business or pleasure, we're going to be able to offer cheaper tickets and to, increase market shares and that kind of thing. So really good point. Yeah. And if we look at, and I think this one's pretty interesting too. Here we have the avian flu, the MERS pandemic, which was, I think that was also a coronavirus, right?
Again, animal-borne sort of thing, virus.
Yeah. And then we have the SARS epidemic, which out of the outbreaks or pandemics had the biggest impact. And I think, now with COVID-19, probably even going to have a bigger one. But the bounce back, the thing that you talked about, to me, is very visible in this graph. You see, it's just a completely V-shaped. It pops back up again. Once we get things under control, people are going to start traveling, and things are going to normalize. I think this one gives in a historic perspective.
Right.
There's no guarantee it's going to be exactly the same in the future.
No.
It might be a little bit staggered, but it definitely shows that recovery can be swift after a pandemic.
And you look at the SARS 2003, that blue line, and you can see that. Month 3, and then it goes right up after month 7. So you're looking at 4 months recovery, which was that was a really big one, that SARS. Now the coronavirus is even bigger, but 4 months we recovered, we bounced back, and we're back to normal.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
It can be done.
Exactly.
It can be done. All righty. I think that was the imagery that we wanted to go through. I'm going to take it back down again, but it's just interesting to support our discussion and our claims with some data, with some historical facts, with some things that make these things that we're discussing and the points we're bringing up more concrete and more empirical in their nature, I guess.
Ooh, I like that word.
Yeah, it's a nice word, eh?
Spell that.
It's Echo Mike Papa India Romeo India Charlie Alpha Lima.
Empirical.
Yeah, I don't know if I got that right. I have no idea. I've never done a spelling bee. We'll see. Yeah, it sounded good, right?
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all it's all
way to
good.
call me out, brother.
It's all good. Yeah. It's good that we saw that it's not doom and gloom. It's we're down and we're getting up and we're going to stand up and we're going to run again.
Yes.
Period.
We are.
Yay.
Yay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know how long we've been recording now. I lost track of time, like I often do when I speak with you. It's been so interesting. But what do you think here towards the final moments of this podcast, the video podcast?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? Do you have anything
I
to
think
add?
that there's more. We can talk more about it, but we don't want to take too much time on this one. But maybe we should go. Maybe we should do a part two if we get some good response, and also if the people like the video thing. I mean, you're a good-looking guy. I mean, I like watching you talk. And that's better.
I don't have the same cool mustache as you do, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, it's getting blonde. Well, we could do a part two because I think that we've just hit the aviation world. But there's so much in the aviation world. We didn't talk about the academy too much, the flying, the instructing, and all that stuff. What the impacts it has, and what can we expect also as well. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point. We can do a part two if people like this episode. Let us know. And can always tune in Spotify, iTunes, and we're going to put this up on YouTube as well. And if you just want to listen in your browser, go to osmaviation.com/podcast, and you'll find it there. And if you're on Instagram, follow the Pilot Talk podcast. Send us a message. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Let us know if you think we should continue doing the video thing. I think we're going to do that anyway. But let us know what you think about it at least. Yeah. And I agree. Yeah, I think this was a good summary of everything. And I thank you for your bringing your positive perspective, especially from someone like you, Michel, who's had an entire career in aviation. You've been through these things before. It's very nice to hear your comforting voice tell me that we're going to bounce back. To remind me that we have in the past. And yeah,
my pleasure.
Yeah,
couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do it without you.
And likewise, I miss hanging out with you. So I look forward to when the borders are opening. I'm going to come down to Spain and we'll go to the beach. Yeah,
it will be good to see the crowds again. I mean, I miss that. I miss the warmth of human company. I mean, it's it's so important, and we're going to get back. And I can't wait. It's going to be great. We're going to have a big party when everybody comes back up and comes back out of their house and all that stuff. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
it's going to be a rebirth.
What a way to wrap things up. You got me all excited now. I really look forward to that too, when everybody comes back out.
Absolutely.
Going to be a big party.
Yay, we're inviting everybody.
Yeah. And on that note, my friend, blue skies and
happy landings.
You said it. Ciao.
All the best, buddy. Stay safe and healthy.
You too, man. Stay safe and healthy. And to all the listeners and viewers as well, stay safe and healthy. We'll get through this.
Absolutely.
Ciao.
Bye.
Pilot Talk, available on iTunes, Spotify, or osmaviation.com/podcast.